This is the new Porsche 911 ST, and I'm a little bit scared about driving it because I've got my new GT3 RS arriving in the next few weeks, and I'm a bit worried that I might prefer this. Buy, sell, car, wow. I'm going to start this car for the first time. It's got a single mass light flywheel, a small light clutch. It's got a bespoke tuned exhaust system. It's got less soundproofing than a GT3. Let's do it. Sports exhaust on, obviously. Or you can hear the chatter when I release the clutch. That's that single mass flywheel. Oh, it does seem quite raw. It actually reminds me of my old 996, now that it's been fitted with a single mass light and flywheel. It's just like raw and motorsporty. Okay, let's go drive it, and hopefully I'm not going to stall it. Oh. The way that revs up is just lovely. I think I might just run this guy over. Takes a bit more concentration to get it going. It's so funny because it feels so luxurious, yet you've got the rawness of that clatter back there. Light and flywheel for the win. That's one good thing about this. I'm not going crazy. And I'm having fun. Oh no. I don't want to like it this much. What don't I like? I even like the noise, that clatter. Maybe other people won't like the noise who aren't really into cars. Feel the steering wheel. RS's Alcantara's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. You know, this car was actually set up on these roads. So they came out here and they actually did all their testing and prototype development of this car here on these roads where I'm about to drive it. So this is the perfect place to drive it. Now this is pretty shonky road, isn't it? Look at this, what's it like over here? So we've got adaptive dampers. It's not too terrible. The car does feel like its body very stiff. Oh, tunnel. Let's just have a listen to this. And you know you're in Italy. Tell me if you feel scared, Lewis.
No, I'm loving it.
That light and flywheel means this thing just spins so quick. I should actually be saying things and like doing commentary, but this is gonna be good now. You ready? Yeah, here's a place where you can have a go.
A few moments later.
Do you notice I switch over when you got to drive around a really tight, awkward town?
Yeah.
After we're through here, we'll switch back.
Not too bad over these.
It's not, is it? Are you being like a motoring journalist, doing some consumer testing
No, I better not
of
try
this
that.
car that literally no one will get the chance to buy? In case you're wondering, the adaptive dampers have a setting so you can adjust them, make them stiffer and softer. Lewis likes to be a little bit soft because he struggles with stiffness. Hi everyone. Go on, give him a rev. Oh, he says no, it's the church. I installed it, panic, we totally blew that one. Oh, Lewis, we're getting jeered by the locals.
We have to reverse it.
No, oh, we're going to have to reverse.
Oh my god.
No, they need to go back. Yeah, you go that way.
I hope they go straight.
Ah, look.
Oh.
This sat nav's a gear.
Oh, it is left.
It is left.
Oh.
Do you want me to help you down there? Nose lift.
Yeah.
We need nose lift.
Do you want to see me down? Or?
I'll see you down. All right.
Let me.
Come on, you've got nowhere to go. I've got to watch. That wheel's off the ground.
This is chaos. Cheers, Matt. I'm not sure what's going on here.
I'm doing camera duties.
I'm so glad we switched when we switched.
Yeah, you enjoying yourself? How you find the gear shift, Lewis?
I haven't changed gear yet.
Oh, bloody hell.
Blimey.
Is this right? This can't be, is this the route? Is this supposed to be an off-roader?
Right, I'm changing gear.
Well, I've got to do it.
Whoa.
Oh, how was that for you?
It was good.
Okay, Liz, can you pull over and let me drive now?
Yeah. Well, now it's got a bit nicer. Can I just have a few
No,
minutes?
pull over! I've got to review the car!
A few moments later.
Sometimes, right, you know, I come back from trips like this and like Joe's like, oh, you know, you've just been away in beautiful country in the sunshine. It's like, no, it's absolutely bloody hard work, you know, reviewing a car, making sure you're saying right things, you've analysed it correctly, presenting to camera. And it's not as much fun as some people think. This is though, it's doing all right over these terrible roads here, isn't it? That is impressive.
2 seconds later.
We've had a bit of an incident, so I've pulled over. I was coming around a corner, a very tight corner. I wasn't going particularly quickly, and the road just had a massive divot in it. It wasn't like a pothole, it just like that. And the car went down into it, and it skipped on the front end a little bit. I just want to assess the damage. Whew, it's just this. You can feel it's just scuffed that a little bit, this bit of plastic. Whew. I can't believe they've sent us on this route because no other car manufacturer would send their sports car for journalists to drive on a route like this. I mean, it's coping with it. It's crazy. I'm here with Andreas Preininger. He's the man who's in charge of Porsche's GT products. Can you tell me, what is the idea behind this car? What is it all about?
60 years of 911, we wanted to celebrate that, and we wanted to bring out a car that features the core virtues of the 911 in a modern car, in a modern way. It has to be a 911 which is lightweight, puristic, from the driving dynamic side, best in class. That was a very, very big key criteria. We wanted to get as much information, as much dialogue between man and machine on this car, because this is entertaining. This is what we want the driver to feel, to be connected with the car and to have a good time.
So, where is this car focused? You've got the GT3 RS, which is like the ultimate 911 for the track.
Right.
So this is the ultimate 911 for the road.
We think this is the ultimate driver's car, the ultimate 911 driver's car. We have in the program at the moment, you're right, the RS is for track aficionados, for the guys going to the track at the weekend, using the car really as a sport instrument, as a tool to get better lap times, and not so much for enjoying B-roads. This is in England we would say a B-road blaster. This is set up for the street. This is not set up for the track so much.
Now, with the GT3 RS, you talk about like the track, but the fact that it's so good on the track, it's the aero that makes it so good on the track. That also makes it look like nothing else on the road. I mean, it stands out. And when you look at the GT3 RS, I just adore the look of it. And a lot of people I know probably won't track their cars, but they just have this amazing race car for the road. Talk me through the design of this, because it's a lot more subtle, but it's different than, let's say, a GT3 Touring, isn't it? What are the key design differences?
I mean, it looks very similar to a GT3 Touring, right? It's subtle, it's not obtrusive, it doesn't feature big wings, because it wants to remind on the 60-year-old 911, and this had no wings at all at that time. So we'd rather went from the GT3 Touring as a base to jump from, like on the historic ST, we used the 911S, which was in that time the most potent, the most capable 911 variant. So we made it lighter with a lot of carbon fiber stuff. It looks a little bit different as well if we go around the car and look at the door, for example. The door was used or is used on the current GT3 RS, which is a very, very aggressive design, but it has one other very big advantage for us. It's made of carbon fiber, and it had, as a matter of fact, to be connected with the front fender, which needed the same, I'd call it, aerodynamical stringer that we have here. We need that on the GT3 RS to vent the front wheel wells. We don't need it so much for aerodynamical reasons here, because this is not a high downforce car. It's not necessary for a street car, but it makes a cool design feature.
It does look
If
cool.
you look at this, and if you look at the Touring or the normal Carrera, after getting a little bit used to that look, there's almost something missing.
So the door itself, you took the door from the GT3
There's
RS.
a GT3 RS door. This is a bespoke carbon fiber fender. We have a carbon fiber front hood. We have a carbon fiber double bubble roof here, which saves another kilo as well if you compare it to the aluminum version. We have lightweight components in areas where you can see it, underneath the car, in the suspension, we have coupling rods and a stabilizer on the rear side in carbon fiber. And what we call the shear plate, which is a connection between the left and right side of the frame, that is in carbon fiber as well. It sums it up for almost 5 kilos of a weight advantage. The wheels, for example, beautiful colored in ceramic, they're magnesium, saving another 10.5 kilos if you compare it to the already light aluminum version. The clutch system that we have in the car, it's a bespoke clutch. It's half as heavy as the GT3 Tourings. We decided to skip the rear axle steering on that car. That was a lot of development work, but this time the geometry of the car gives us the boundary conditions that we could do it, and that's 6.5 kilos less. And we need a smaller battery because normally the actuators of the rear axle seating, they eat up a lot of juice, I would say. So you need a bigger battery. It saved another 3 kilos on the battery, and so it goes on and on and on. So the car at 1,380 kilos for the car that size, absolutely super light, and you feel it instantly when you get it into motion.
You notice it when you're driving. And it's quite interesting, that weight is very similar to the original 911 GT3. There's not much difference in weight between this car, despite being a much bigger car and all the regulations that you have to work around, being able to get it down to that similar kind of weight. So tell me about the engine.
It's an RS engine, 525 horsepower, 9,000 RPM redline, 465 newtons.
We can tell you're an engineer because we're talking about the design and now we've meandered into the engineering straight away. Yeah. So let's continue around the back for some more of the design. We'll finish this off.
Okay.
So what's happening at the back here? I can see obviously you've got your heritage badging and stuff like that, but this is something that's slightly different to a GT3 Touring. It's not a big thing, but it has a big effect, doesn't it?
What a huge difference, right? It's a gurney flap, and you know Dan Gurney, the race driver of the past, and he invented that kind of thing because his car was loose at the back, and then he took some tubing, I think, and some adhesive tape and put it on the wing, and then the car felt better, and that's I think why it's called the gurney flap. Now it's a little aerodynamical helper that we have here. That's there for various reasons. For the team and for me personally, we wanted to prevent that the rear wing stays in that position as long as possible, because then the car looks pure, looks 911. As soon as that thing comes out, it somehow ruins the aesthetics of the car a little bit. So it doesn't come out at 80 kilometers per hour, that equals 50 miles, something like that. Instead, it comes out at about 80 miles an hour, so it stays in longer. If you don't have the gurney, if somebody has an RS or have an SD and takes it off, the driving dynamics and the behavior of the car will suffer dramatically.
Really?
You wouldn't believe how much effect this thing has at higher speeds.
So in the UK, if you're observing the law, you should never see this spoiler pop up.
Right.
Should never pop up. This is how the car will always look. Whereas on the GT3 Touring, which is just the normal Carrera system, comes out at 50 miles an hour. Do we have a different exhaust system on this car compared to the
Let's
GT3
talk about
Touring?
the grille first.
Okay, let's talk about the grille.
Because this is a bespoke part, and it looks different than on the Touring, and that's for a reason, because we need more air for the engine. The air is, we had to free up some passages here, and so the grille is a little bit wider, is a little bit bigger. It makes a very good platform for this nice stickers, or this nice emblems that we have here. In gold for the heritage version. And this exhaust system, it's a chrome exhaust, but it's the exhaust system of the GT3 RS. This is already super light. This is very, very thin sheet metal. It's even lighter, the damper, than as if it would be made of titanium.
That obviously keeps the weight down. And does it give it a slightly different sound quality than the exhaust on the GT3 then?
The sound quality, and I have to confess, we talked about it in the team quite a lot, is completely different than on the RS. So the RS sounds different than this one, but that's because this insulation material went completely out of the car.
For this car?
Nothing anymore. Dampening materials out. So the whole frequencies and the whole noise and vibrational thing is different on that car. It's not because of the exhaust, it's because of this boundary conditions that the engine's sitting in, that the car sounds different. The exhaust noise in itself is the same.
I did notice that when I drove it, but I do have a question for you. The GT3 RS is the track car.
Yeah.
Why would you have more insulation on the track car than on the road car?
I think we're going a little bit farther with that one, what the driver may want to endure, because this is the super lightweight 911R successor, or the most extreme puristic car that we offer. And that's definitely not a car for everyone. This is not the car to travel around 5 hours a day to commute from A to B, and we have to consider that on an RS, even because the people want to drive their cars to the track.
Yeah.
And if you live in Germany,
Right.
in Munich, and you go every other weekend to the Nürburgring, so you have a voyage of about 500 kilometers ahead of you, and you want to get out there without having to wear earplugs. And this is a drawback of having such a light clutch and such a light, flywheel. It gives the car explosive acceleration. It gives the car almost like a Formula One revving up dynamics, but it makes some noise.
And that was it, the experience driving it when you first pull away, like trying to just balance it, not stall it. It's like a racing car in that respect. The chatter from that single mass flywheel, and especially when you're pulling away in low revs, you get that resonance from the single mass flywheel. And when you combine it with that gear shift as well, it's just that short shift in it is just beautiful. We were having a discussion last night, and it's really funny how one of the most revered gearboxes is in a Mazda MX-5. It's such a great gearbox,
I love
and a
it.
Honda S2000.
Yeah.
And the 911s are like, you've always had the 6-speed in the GT cars because it's better than the 7-speed, I think.
We don't need a 7th gear.
Yeah. But this one, the short shift in it, and the problem with the short shift is that there's more risk of money shifting, but this one's really really so good and precise.
It's like a bolt action rifle.
It's
a
so
little bit.
good.
Cluck, cluck. Yeah.
Now, you were talking about like the refinement. You remove the refinement from this to experience the car. Yet when you compare it inside to the GT3 RS, which you say is a bit more refined for driving longer distances, this cabin is more luxurious.
It is.
Shall we check it out?
But this is the cabin of the Heritage version.
Okay.
And the Heritage version, as a matter of fact, reminds a little bit on the old 911s, has different colors, a little bit more leather to make it a little bit more cozy atmosphere, whereas the standard car is more puristic, I would say. So, but yeah, we can have a look inside, sure.
Let's do it. I'm actually sat in Andreas's own 911 ST. So this is your spec?
Not my own, but it's my spec.
Okay,
it's a
your
company
spec.
car, but I'm happy to be able to use it, yeah.
I said I really like the interior of the classic design package. I think it just feels luxurious. It sort of reminds me of like a really expensive designer handbag.
Yeah.
And I do like that, and I love a brown interior. Now, explain to me why you spec the car like this, though.
For me personally, I like a black car because I think the soul of the car is a better fit to a black car that looks puristic, that looks very, very unobtrusive. It's a wolf in a sheepskin. Different strokes for different folks.
So you talked about the 996. I've actually got a 996 with the Savannah beige interior.
Wow.
I just wanted to get your impression on that.
Wow. Yeah, I know. I can remember that color. Yeah.
It's kind of like baby poo. You know, the early days.
Long
of the
time
first
ago
6
in
months.
my family, but maybe you're right, yeah. But I bet it smells better than that.
Yeah, it does. I do like these seats, though. And these are the standard seats.
These are the standard seats. They come standard, and I think it's the most important option on any GT car is the full bucket seat, because this is the connection from machine to the driver. This gives you all the informations to your backside, to your legs, and you just sit a lot deeper into the car. And low center of gravity, important as well. But it gives you all the feedback of the car that you need.
Speaking of specs, I want you to give your verdict on the spec that I went for a GT3 RS. Now, I'm not going to reveal the spec to you because I haven't revealed the car, but I'm going to tell you what I went for. And you'll know the car because...
Sure.
Okay. What do you think of that spec?
I think it's perfectly ugly.
No.
Just kidding. No, I really love it.
No, you can't say the colour. Okay, brilliant. So my car spec has Andreas's seal of approval, which is
Absolutely.
good, and you'll be able to see that very, very soon. So back to this car. The steering wheel on this is slightly different than in the other car that I've been driving.
Yeah.
It's got perforations.
It is round, it is 360 millimeters, but it's got a perforated sides, and this is something new to this car. The Touring doesn't have it, and the Heritage Pack doesn't as well. Why? Because it just was too confusing. So there was too much color and too much different surfaces at one place. So we decided to keep that without the perforation. But here on the black car, I think it does a good job. It looks good and it feels good.
Yeah, it is really nice. One thing that is notably missing from the steering wheel are not only the 4 dials from the 3RS, but even a dial.
We wanted to keep it as puristic as possible because this is the main message of the car. The mode switch on the GT3 for primarily reasons is because you want to switch often on track and no track, and this is not a track car.
So the steering wheel's different, there's no switches on it,
No.
but also the mechanics behind the steering is slightly different on this car than a GT3 Touring or a 3 RS, isn't it?
The hardware is a little bit different. It's more direct, so the reduction, if you're being an engineer again, it's not 14:1, it's 15:1. It's a little bit more direct. This fits quite well the completely different suspension setup the car has.
And did you do that because you don't have the rear wheel steering
Yes.
to help get the car turning?
Yeah, but several reasons. We worked a lot on the dampers. The damper programming couldn't be more different. Because we have the same hardware on damper and on springs than in a GT3 Touring, but you felt yourself it feels completely different, and so you have to address the steering as well. And you were right, without the rear axle steering, gave us the opportunity even to make it a little bit even more responsive, but at the same time more linear than what you have in a GT3 Touring. And we played empirically a lot with the steering reduction, and this is what the team found considered the best solution.
As well as having this lovely short shifter, which adds to the driving experience. One thing I did notice is that, like in second gear, I'm topping out around just over 100 kilometers an hour,
Yeah.
which is perfect, right?
Yeah.
I think that's exactly where I want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So the gearing just seems a bit snappy, a bit tighter than I remember in the GT3.
It is. It is substantially shorter. It's 8%. And 8% is a lot on the reduction. So the car is more explosive, has more pulling power in every gear, and that's what you feel. That's what I feel. In addition to this lightweight car with 525 horsepower, the car has to propel a lot less mass than on an RS, and it has a manual gearbox which eats up less horsepower.
In terms of launching it compared to the GT3, you say the clutch pack is, what is it, half the weight? Half the size?
The clutch in itself, it's dramatically reduced in diameter. It is made of aluminum. It is made super light. It's really a very, very light and super expensive part. And it weighs half of what the clutch system in the GT3 Touring weighs. The clutch sits at the back of the crankshaft. The crankshaft turns, and it has to turn the clutch system as well. And the rotational inertia is a third of the clutch system of the GT3. So that means the car can rev up more quickly.
When it comes to launching it, say if I'm putting in a 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, this technically should be able to launch a bit quicker than the
Yeah,
GT3.
it
It's
does.
just that if I cock it up, I won't get as many goes in this because the clutch will start to heat up quicker.
It is logical, because if you have something, I mean, on a clutch system, heat is a crucial thing. And if you have got a bigger, more mass system, it can take up and store more heat than a small one. So you're perfectly fine with that car to do any kind of launches. But at the end of the day, it's more sensible to heat, as a matter of fact. And so it's not a racing clutch that you can do burnouts all day. It's a lightweight clutch. Maybe only 200 times instead of 500 times. Which,
Okay, and it's more expensive to replace when it does go.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll bear that in mind. So for launching it, are you a sidestep kind of guy, or are you more of a feed?
I just let it go.
You just bang
I
sidestep?
just let it bang out.
Well, okay, well, I'll give it a go later on. And if it goes wrong, it's I'm doing exactly what you told me. So when I drove the car over these terrible roads, I'm surprised that you say it's the same suspension as a GT3
Yes.
Touring, just recalibrated differently.
Dampers.
Because I don't know whether my mind's not remembering properly.
There's a Touring over there. Drive them back to back.
Well, do you know what? I think that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So now I'm sat in a GT3 Touring. I'm going to see how different it feels to the ST. So I'm going to start it up. And immediately, it's just less raucous. Feels more refined. You know, you can still sense the power of that 4-litre flat six, but I'm separated from it more in this. So let's pull away. It's much easier to just pull away smoothly in this because of that dual mass flywheel having more weight and keeping you going, and the clutch is bigger as well. It still feels sporty as heck, but just not as hardcore as that ST. So the first thing is to test the suspension. So already this just feels a bit more bouncy, and this is in the comfort setting. Well, there's not a comfort setting for a GT car, it's like the normal one. It is mad to think it's the same springs and dampers, the same hardware, but just different software controlling the dampers. It just goes to show you what like development, time spent with the car calibrating it can have on the way it drives. I'm going to put it into the sport mode. Yeah, and you notice the difference. In the ST I didn't. you couldn't really feel any difference in comfort levels as such. Do you know what? This feels good, this GT3. If you've got one of these, you should be more than happy. It definitely doesn't feel quite as supple over the bumps when you're going quicker. And I don't think the throttle response is quite as sharp in terms of how the car initially picks up, because obviously you've got the heavier clutch, the heavier flywheel. It has a slightly smoother feel, this does. Just less raucous. Still blooming good. Maybe the front end doesn't feel quite as grippy here on the road. I'm not sure whether it's the steering, because this has less direct steering, but it does have rear axle steering, which the ST doesn't. The ST just feels a bit more pointy on those really tight, slower turns. I wouldn't say this is like a long shift gearbox, it feels very short shift to me. Maybe a little bit more slop in it compared to the ST. I mean, I'd never say this was a sloppy gearbox, it's great, but the ST's just, it's right up there with the very best gear shifts. And this may sound silly, best gear shifts for me, Mazda MX-5, one of the very best, Honda S2000 and the 911 ST. Obviously the 911's a lot more expensive than those cars. Another thing that's slightly different on the GT3 is the setting on the diff. So you've got a mechanically locking diff if you've got the manual gearbox on both cars. However, the locking effect is slightly less on the ST, makes the front end a little bit more pointy on turning. I mean, that could have something to do with it. I mean, I don't know. But the ST does just feel a little bit sharper. I'm going to go into sports mode for the suspension now. In this car, the sport mode for the suspension is really designed for a completely flat racing track. And obviously this road is not completely flat, so it will feel quite bumpy. Whereas the ST is not designed for the racing track, so both settings are designed for road use. I've just had to put my sunglasses on so I can see what I'm doing because there's bright sunlight and then patches of shade. This car doesn't have carbon ceramics like the ST does. Obviously you can get them as an option, and they do reduce the unsprung mass, so that'll make this car feel a little bit stiffer over bumps. It'll also affect the steering turning slightly. So we're not comparing exactly like with like. I think I prefer the braking of the carbons as well, but these brakes are still very good. I mean, this is a real event driving this car, but it's slightly less of an event compared to the ST. I do find it slightly easier to match the heel and toe in this with a slightly slower revving nature. You do have to get your racing driver shoes on to get it balanced perfectly in the ST. See, it's just better, isn't it? I can do a better job of it. I think my brain is more calibrated to a dual mass flywheel. According to Porsche, this GT3 Touring manual should do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. I'm going to launch it and do exactly what Andreas said. I'm going to dump the clutch, so. That was rubbish. I don't think that just dumping it is the way to go. It just bogs. I think a feed is better. Come on. Okay, there we go. 4.9, a second slower than it's supposed to do. I guess I'm not an ideal tarmac, and it did bog down a little bit where I released the clutch. That's what it's done. Anyhow, now I'm going to jump back in to the ST. The ST is supposed to do 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. So let's see what I do in this. Same thing again. It launched better and it got a better time. Not as good as Porsche says, but 4.6 seconds, which is 0.3 of a second quicker than I achieved in the normal GT3 Touring. It definitely hooked up better, and it seemed to just rev up just more freely and be quicker off the mark. I think the lower gear ratio is going to help with that as well. It was good. It's quite interesting now being back in this. You do notice that the suspension deals with bumps better. I'm actually going to put it into the sportier setting, which isn't overly firm. You also notice the steering is more responsive. The car just seems a little bit more agile. It's also noisier. You really get to hear that engine more, thanks to the fact they've removed all that sound deadening. The throttle response as well. Because you've got less inertia from those lightened components, the flywheel, the clutch, really just make the car feel more alive. You never think of saying that the GT3 Touring isn't extreme enough, but when you get in this is definitely more of an occasion when you drive it. And so is that weekend toy, you know, to just go out on the weekend for no other purpose than having a thrash on a twisty country road. This is the 911 to have, if you can get allocation on one and have like £230,000. But what a machine. Gear shift. It's not a massive difference in the throw, but it does just seem more precise. Once you get used to that light and flywheel and the fact that the car revs just much quicker, you really get into a groove with this thing. I love it. So then, what's my final verdict then? Would I rather have this or a GT3 RS? Well, I do prefer the look of the GT3 RS. There's just something about it. It's so extreme. It is a race car for the road. And on track, with all the aero, there's nothing else like it. But as the ultimate 911 to drive on the road, it's this. It's the ST. And the changes over a GT3 Touring do feel significant enough to warrant the extra price. This is a very special car. And if you have the means and the allocation, just go right ahead and buy it.